The following Knowledge at Wharton podcast is brought to you by Wharton Executive Education. For more information on Wharton's executive course, Full Spectrum Innovation Driving Organic Growth, please visit executiveeducation.wharton.upenn.edu.
Radiohead, the British rock band, sent shockwaves through the music industry recently when it announced that it would release its latest album online, without a record label, and let fans pay whatever they wanted to for it, including nothing at all. For Radiohead, this means the group doesn't have to pay recording, marketing, or overhead costs, and it gets to keep the entire price of each album sold, not just a small fraction of it. But what does this mean for the industry in general? As one AP reporter put it, quote, "Depending on what side of the digital divide you sit, this action augured one of two things: the end of the music business as we know it, or the dawn of the music business's second life." We've asked Wharton marketing professor Peter Fader and Don Huseman, Senior Director of Information Technology at Wharton, for their reactions to Radiohead's move. Pete and Don, thanks for being here. First question, is this a good idea?
Well, I think any idea that something new and different is a good idea. I think what the industry needs right now is to let 1,000 flowers bloom, try different kinds of business models, see what works, see what doesn't, in terms of customers being happy. This is not something that's going to happen repeatedly. This is a big name band that has a built-in following. You're not going to see this kind of thing happening with lots of little independent artists. In fact, you are seeing it with lots of independent artists, and it's not really working well. The labels still have a real place to be the tastemakers, to tell us what we need to listen to. And despite what people say about the quality of music today, I think they do a pretty good job at that.
Yeah, I think this is more to reiterate what Pete was saying. I think this is more of a performance art piece by Radiohead than a new business model, really. I mean, they're coming off of a lucrative deal with the EMI. They're Grammy-winning band. I think what they've done is they've taken this discussion that's happening among the titans of the music industry. And have decided to have the conversation instead on a more intimate level with their fan base and saying to the fans, why don't you decide what the real value of our music is? Pick your price. Is MP3 good enough? If so, go that route. If not, spend the $80 US and buy the fancier boxed set with vinyl LPs and all that.
So neither of you think that more popular musicians with wider fan bases who have maybe more to lose by sticking with their music contracts won't follow in their footsteps?
Well, they might. Again, the big guys might. They can go off on their own. There was the announcement just this week about Madonna leaving Warner. They have the power to do that. But these artists represent a rather small slice of the industry as a whole. So I think what matters more is what's happening with the grassroots. And I don't mean the band, and I think in that way we'll still see the labels deciding who's really good. The way albums or songs get distributed, that's going to continue to change. In fact, one of the concerns I have here is just that, is the distinction between albums and songs. I think as Don said, part of the Radiohead deal is to release this thing, the album, for whatever you want, and then pay for the big expensive box set later on. And if you compare that to other industries, it's completely backwards. Usually you pay more. The early adopters are willing to pay more for the premium version, and then the mass market comes in and gets the cheaper thing later on. I think that's the right model for the music industry. And if this particular model gets adopted, I think that could be tragic for the industry as a whole.
Yeah, I'm still thinking that this model is primarily an experiment that's mostly intended for an artistic impact, and I would suspect that in the longer run, the real question is, as we see the industry sort of shift between the CD era, which was dominated, at least most recently, by 4 players, moving to the digital era, where it's now being dominated by 1 player. 75% of the legal distribution of digital media is now controlled by Apple. So that's a little scary. And in that regard, I see the artist as being a player that doesn't have really a seat at the negotiating table. And that's my biggest concern. Is I'm less worried about who's making the money from the distribution and who's. I'm not also worried about the big name stars, because most of their money is made from side benefits to the popularity of their CD sales. So in that regard, I'm not worried about the big players, but I am worried about the little ones.
One of the band members said that the whole reason for this was, quote, "It's fun to make people stop for a few seconds and think about what music is worth," end quote. Is this a realistic assessment of what's going through consumers' minds when they decide how much to pay for this?
It's an interesting thing. I don't know if you heard Bruce Springsteen on 60 Minutes the other night, but he made a very convincing case that rock and roll can change the world and maybe do some things for the better. And he's got me believing him. So I'm now thinking that music is not just a private good, as the economists would say, but also probably a public good. And it's a nice thing to get our minds around the notion as we move into a new era of how we can sort of preserve that value of what music has meant for the society. Sort of an alternative in the educational sphere. We've had an effort to do this thing called No Child Left Behind, and I wonder if there isn't a corollary to No Artist Left Behind, whether we should be thinking about or worrying about.
One of my concerns with that kind of announcement, and just the whole new gimmick by Radiohead, is that it commoditizes the music. If you boil it down to what is this song worth, you don't want people to be thinking about that. I think that's one of the problems with the whole iTunes business model. Is it worth 99 cents or not? I think music, being a holistic good, an experiential good, is worth more than just the bits and the bytes that you're acquiring. And I think one of the things that the industry has failed to do is to really create that sense of overall value and find ways to get people to really pay for it. I think the movie industry, for instance, you look at all the goodies that they pack in with a DVD, you're doing more than just paying for the movie. You're paying for all these extra goods. You're paying for the right to have this special box on your shelf along with other movies that you deem worthy. The music industry has moved away from that, which is unfortunate because I think they have just as much potential, if not more, to encourage people to add to their collection and do more than just figure out what this song is worth.
Well,